welcome back to the SimGear GT3 Premier League, organised by BULERS, and this time we are back in North America. We're back in the United States, this time in sunny Florida for Sebring, the immense challenge of this airfield circuit. Currently practice session ongoing for our drivers in the series. And this is a circuit that I think will suit this series to a T. We're going to get some exciting racing around this wonderful facility, a track that is renowned for its intricacies, for its challenges. You look at the circuit layout from above, it's already a pretty complex situation, but then you take into account that surface and it gets even more difficult, especially in thoroughbred racing cars. You can really lose a lot of time. You can end up in the wall quite easily around some of these bumpier sections of the circuit. Vladislav Shopov is our championship leader coming into this event, and he comes into the event with a healthy lead as well. Shopov on 445 points. He is your championship leader in the Impulse Racing Porsche 992 GT3R. 54 points is his advantage. 150 points available each weekend, so by no means has he run away with it yet. But this man in the number one car, Viktor Varbanov, his closest competition, will be looking to try and shrink that gap down this time. He's got a little less backup in the JRS vertical grip camp this weekend. A couple of drivers electing to bow out of this weekend, so we'll see how the JRS vertical grip Lamborghini performs this weekend. Varbanov there, the sharp end, no doubt, as always. There, though, is the driver in third position in the championship. German Sim Racing's Philipp Koenig, I would say, has consistently looked like the fastest driver out there in the championship. However, fortune has not been in his favour at times. We saw him collected up in incidents at Road America and at Portimao as well. It's been a challenging season so far for Philipp Koenig, but in spite of the obstacles that have been thrown at him, still sits third in the championship, will surely be a favourite. And then just behind him on the road during this practice session at the moment, you see one of the off-track racing BMWs. They lead in AM. This is Boyko Shopov, who sits fourth in the championship, and that is Milen Milchev. He sits second in the AM title fight at the moment. He is just behind his off-track racing colleague Krastin Stanchev. They sit 13th and 14th in the overall standings, but they are pretty much paired together at the front of the AM class. They seem to think this BMW would go well around the Sebring circuit. We'll see whether that theory proves to be true. As you can see, just a couple of minutes of qualifying left to go at the moment. Then we will dive into a 20-minute qualifying session. That will be followed up by a 20-minute race, that being the kind of sprint race to start off. The top 10 from that race will then be reversed going into our 40-minute feature race. And we look forward to seeing how that one goes. In the familiar Grello Manti colours, we have Bozidar Andreev. He is looking to try and get a good result out of this race. He's been there or thereabouts at times this season, but is only 23rd in the standings, so he has been a little bit off in terms of consistent results. There's another of the Porsches. The Porsches have had a stronghold over this season, along with the Lamborghinis. They've looked like the two quickest cars. Julian Janowski, one of the faster Porsche drivers, currently tied for 8th in the standings with Anton Stratiev. The two Jekov Rally School drivers are tied on 318 points at the moment. How are things looking then in terms of manufacturer dominance around this circuit? Well, it is two Porsches at the sharp end of the order. Vladislav Shopov, your championship leader, the quickest in this 40-minute practice session that has just concluded. But Porsche, Lamborghini and Ferrari represented in the top 5 in that practice session. And in fact, right at the end of practice, Philipp Koenig putting a 2-minute .912 in So Koenig actually setting the pace right at the end of that free practice session. We now go into qualifying here to the home of the famous Sebring 12 hours. There you see the iconic start-finish straight, the manufacturers and the years and the flags listed over the garages representing who won in what year around the famous Sebring circuit. A true cathedral of speed, a former host, of course, of the United States Grand Prix many, many moons ago as well. And pretty much any iconic sports car driver you can name has taken a race victory around this circuit at one time or another. Often the 12-hour race is referred to as more of a challenge than the Le Mans 24-hour. Mechanically speaking, the cars go through so much more around this circuit. And of course, while mechanical sympathy isn't such a factor on iRacing, it is still going to be an immense challenge for our drivers who are now out there into qualifying. Currently approaching Cunningham Corner, one of the overtaking opportunities through the basically flat-out Fangio chicane, and then towards Cunningham and Collier Curve. You can definitely get a move done there if you are brave enough. This is Tower Turn, which leads you on to the final sector of the lap. Now, you can't necessarily make a move at Tower Turn, but you can certainly get a bad run and cost yourself time through Tower. Flying Fortress Straight and Bishop Bend being taken by our drivers at the moment. Of course, Flying Fortress, an allusion to the US Air Force, who at one time ran planes here at Sebring. Still an active airfield as well. Out of Le Mans Curve and down the Ullman Straight they go. That, of course, is where the international pits are situated when series requiring a more traditional European pit lane are required. So they use both the back straight and the main straight, of course, as a pit lane at times here at Sebring. Sunset Bend is the all-important last corner. That's where you see those incredible shots of cars bouncing over the corners. That's exactly where Philipp Koenig is at the moment. You can see how bumpy it is. You can see the car kind of jumping through the corner. It'll be so brave as well with that tyre wall on corner exit. If you're not close to the tyre wall, you haven't gone through the corner quick enough. You're right on board then with Philipp Koenig. This will be really good actually to get a lap with him through turn one, bouncing right to the edge of turn one, on the brakes into turn two. Deceptively complex S-bend sequence here as well. You've got to be really careful on those curves. To be quick, you've got to take them. But in order to take them correctly, you've got to be right on the money. If you take a little bit too much curb, you will end up in a spin. Through the flat-out Gurney bend goes Koenig then. Under the Mobile 1 bridge. On the brakes into the hairpin turn. So easy to overshoot that, especially in the heat of a battle. And then flat out down towards Cunningham Corner through the Fangio chicane. It isn't really much of a chicane these days. Fully flat out in a GT3 racing machine such as this German sim racing Porsche 992 GT3R. Through Cunningham, get on the power, try not to go into the traction control too much coming out of that corner. Collier Curve and Tower turn away. You see their wide berth into Tower, just trying to square up the corner, get a good exit, take the curb, but not too much of it so as not to unsettle the rear of the car. And then it's flat out once again through these kinks. You've seen cars go upside down here a couple of times in IMSA competition in recent years. If you have a collision there, it's going to be a big one. Through the all-important sequence of bends here onto the back straight, the Ullman Straight. You see how much of the runoff area they're using to try and make the corner as loose of an angle as possible, going on to the Ullman Straight. And then it's Sunset Bend, which you have to approach with ferocity. They'll be touching 300 kilometers an hour or somewhere close to it by the end of that main straight, maybe 280, 290, bouncing through Sunset, really getting close to the wall. And that's a lap of the Sebring circuit. On board with Koenig. What kind of time does he put in as the first competitive laps come in? It's a 2:01.001. He was briefly on provisional pole, but Vladislav Shopov has just gone quicker still, a 2:08.845. And that benchmark is surely going to shift downwards as the session goes on as well. 5 minutes complete of this session, 15 to go plenty of time for the laps to tick down, and I suspect we may see a 1:59 before the end of the session. If not from these two, from Shopov, from Koenig, then one of their close competitors. Connor Brown, third fastest in the early going in the first of the Ferraris. That's another Impulse Racing entry, so a sister car, of course, to the one we have on screen here, the Porsche of Vladislav Shopov. Connor Brown has been really flying the flag for Ferrari in the BULERS SimGear GT3 Premier League so far. This is Season 8 of the Premier League for BULERS and SimGear. And it's a prestigious prize to win, not just within Bulgarian sim racing, but broadly across the European scene. It's a respected title to win. And of course, it is a title win that yields prizes as well. If you take the win in this championship in the Pro class, you get 150 euros. The AM class prize pot is worth 100 euros. You can also get prizes in the top 5 as well. So lots of incentives to be strong across the season here in the SimGear GT3 Premier League. It's a very friendly series. Often in those press conferences that we have at the end of the broadcast, we get to hear from some of our drivers, and you can tell that there is good respect and good conversation between them. However, with those prizes on the line, I'm sure as the season goes on, it's only going to get more and more serious. And we look forward to seeing this back half of the season. Of course, we've had a weekend off. We will have another weekend off between Laguna Seca Round 6 and Suzuka, our season finale. But we are into the second portion of the season. On consecutive weekends, our drivers are going to be challenged by Sebring, Spa and Laguna Seca. 3 very different circuits from a character standpoint. 3 of the most famous, iconic and revered racing circuits around the world. That's the beauty of sim racing. You can create the best calendar on earth. You don't have to worry about any of the flights. 2-minute 0.702 is the benchmark at the moment. Impulse Racing's Vladislav Shopov is fastest. Here comes one of our AM category front runners, Milen Milchev. Is he fastest AM? Not yet, not at the moment. The fastest AM car is Ivalo Dimitrov for Reserve Racing, running 14th position in his Ferrari. I believe that's the red and yellow machine that we've seen often in amongst the heat of battle and the heat of the odd moment as well throughout the season. Keep an eye as well on the Automech Psycho Radios pair, the Belgian team of Roy Verveek and Juris Ums. This is Roy Verveek at the moment, what we look at on the screen. He's sitting just outside the top 10 at the moment, one of our international competitors. We've got a healthy mix of Bulgarian sim race elites and international racers as well. Of course, Philip Koenig, the first of the internationals in the standings, third in the championship, and certainly will be looking to have a good run of form in this weekend here at Sebring. Of course, that top 10 reverse at the conclusion of race 1 is often the factor that makes race 2 so exciting. You see the top 10 reversed, you get to see what perhaps some of the drivers who struggle in race 1 can do with a clean slate at the front of the grid in race 2. And it gives the opportunity for the likes of Shopov, Koenig, those that we expect to be at the front at the conclusion of race 1, to then show how they can work their way through the field. And obviously, working your way through the field is a thing that takes 2 to tango. It's all well and good being good at overtaking, but you've got to hope that those around you will let you do so and not cause any incidents around you. It can be quite a fine balance between confidence and overconfidence, overtakes or collisions. There's the 22 car then. There is Connor Brown in the Impulse Racing Ferrari 296 GT3. The 296 GT3 is quite a muted GT3 car. You sit trackside at a GT3 race and you think it's a bit quiet compared to some of the stuff around it, but actually I had the opportunity last weekend to commentate on Ferrari Challenge UK here at Brands Hatch, and actually it's quite a lovely sounding car. The V6 motor in the 296. Of course, 296, that is a code. It's 2.9 litre V6 engine turbocharged in the Ferrari 296. It's actually quite a sonorous little car as well. I was quite surprised to hear how the road car's engine note sounds. And of course, not the only six-cylinder on the grid. There is the Porsche 992 GT3R with its famous flat six motor. It's a straight six as well in the BMW M4 GT3 that we have out on the circuit. Naturally aspirated, big bore straight six engine for the Porsche 992s. Then, of course, you've got the 5.2 litre V10s in the Lamborghini Huracans and the Audis, but it doesn't look like we have any Audis out this weekend, so the Audi contingent has seemingly dived off. Hopefully we get to see the likes of Vasil Zhekov back again before the end of the season. Certain teams and drivers cannot commit to the full year, of course. Real-life commitments are a problem for everybody. All in Malinov, just going 19th fastest. I think that's a new name to the Supersport team, if I'm not mistaken. Running 19th at the moment. There you see that Lamborghini in its primarily white livery, but we won't miss that one thanks to the blue, green and red stripes. That's what we like from a race team, is a good distinctive livery. That helps in the commentary box, I assure you. Vladislav Shopov still fastest. A 2-minute .702 is your benchmark. And only five cars, my apologies, are within a second of his time at the moment. So everyone from Janowski in sixth back is behind. However, we've just had an improvement there from Viktor Varbanov. Varbanov goes third fastest, beating out Connor Brown. So Porsche, Lamborghini, Ferrari, your top four at the moment. But then from 5th all the way down to 14th, it is a stronghold of Porsche 992 GT3Rs. There is the rather lovely Castrol Ferrari 296. Always like to see this car on the screen. Of course, this is a livery one would typically associate with Toyota. I do note that there is a Tom's sticker on it. I definitely associate Tom's with Toyota, but it is a Ferrari machine. I myself have driven a Viper liveried, what was it? A Viper liveried McLaren in a racing series before, so I can't criticize it. An iconic livery is an iconic livery, no matter what car it is on. There is the 106 machine of Palauzov. Currently running down in 25th position. The first of our AM drivers at the moment is still Ivaylo Dimitrov. This is another of the 296s. This is Alexander Nikolov in the AM class, but this is the fastest of the AM class Ferraris at the moment. Dimitrov 15th fastest, and looking like he is on strong form here at the Sebring circuit. Will it be a Ferrari weekend in AM? It's looked like the BMWs are the strongest of all so far this year in the AM category. It's Lazar Kaczarski third in the AM class at the moment, the closest competitor to the AM BMWs from off-track racing. This is, of course, another Ferrari 296, as you can see, wearing the same distinctive livery as the Lamborghini of Malinov. That's the driver that sits third in the AM standings at the moment. It's three in the top four for off-track racing BMW, though, because Vladimir Mavrodiev is fourth in the AM standings at this point of the season. So the BMWs from off-track are looking very, very strong to this point in the season. But, of course, the season is still young. This is round 4 of 7. Races 7 and 8 of the season. So there's still a long way to go in this series. There's the number 5 car, Ratchinov. He could be one to watch, especially in the race over the full race distance. Perhaps as well if he stays where he is now, about 9th position, if he can hold that ballpark through the race, of course, then he'll be right up there in the second race of the day. The 40-minute feature, the pit stop race. Of course, the 20-minute race is an all-out dash to the flag. And often it feels like that first race is the warm-up almost. It's very action-packed. We get great racing in the first race, but it's race 2 usually where everything starts to go a bit crazy. And we'll see whether that remains the case again this time around. There is Serafimov in at the 28. You see the JRS on his car. One of many, many entries backed by the Jekov Rally School. That is definitely not the line going onto the Ullman Straight. Looks like he's just pulling up there. Here comes number 6 car of Svetanov. Let's see what kind of time he can put in. Down in 14th position at the moment. Wouldn't necessarily expect him to be that low come the end of the session. Across the line now. Can Svetanov improve? No, not quite. In fact, yes, goes up to 9th position. My timing screen a couple of seconds back there. Svetanov is indeed now up into the top 10. Also into the top 10, Joris Ooms as well. So one of the Belgians is now in the top 10. 8th overall for the Automex Psycho Radio's number 32 entry. There you see that car on screen. We're seeing some good progress out of our drivers. We've got a few in the pits at the moment. We've got less than 4 minutes of this session remaining. Here comes Kochev across the line. He's only down in 17th place. Something tells me that's not going to stay the case for too much longer, though. Looks like he's had a decent lap to this point. Across the line goes Kochev. And this time, actually, no improvement for the Jekov Rally Team entry. Let's see what he can do from P17. 3 minutes of this session remain. And take a listen to these wonderful GT3 machines. So into the final 3 minutes of the session. 2.5 minutes left to go. Is there any more improvement to be had from anyone around the circuit? Koenig is on a lap at the moment. What's his first sector looking like? I'll see if I can find that on my timing screen. First sector, not sensational. But we'll see whether that changes in sector 2. It's not looking like the fastest lap ever. His last lap through was a personal best, though, so let's stay with it and see whether Koenig does improve. The German sim racing Porsche onto the Ullman Straight then. Time to beat is a 2-minute .702. Koenig 2/10 off at the moment. The time set by Vladislav Shopov. Let's see. Drifts it wide through Sunset Bend, as you really have to try and get a good exit, carry some momentum through, but he is into the pit lane. So Koenig not electing to complete his final flying lap. Here comes the number 8 of Janowski. Janowski there, trying to get to the line as quickly as possible, but only sits in 8th position. Increasing number of cars in the pit lane. Everyone, I think, is fairly satisfied that they've found their best speed. Varbanov appears to still be out there on the circuit, though. So Varbanov might be on something of a lap. We've got less than 60 seconds left to go in this session, though. And I don't think anyone thinks they're getting anywhere near Shopov. Here is Krastin Stanchev, who only sits 25th at the moment. That would certainly be a subpar quali session by Stanchev's standards. Onto the back straight then. I'm not sure he's going to get this lap in, though. Typically at 20 minutes the session concludes, rather than them getting to complete their last flying lap. I'm not sure he's quite going to get it in. It's going to be very close. Stanchev for off-track racing then, rounding the final corner. I think he's lifted out of it. Yes, he has. And that concludes the session. Vladislav Shopov is your pole sitter then for race number 1. The 20-minute sprint race will begin shortly. Shopov and Koenig on the front row, then Viktor Varbanov in third. Your championship top 3 are in the first 3 positions on the grid. Connor Brown in 4th place. Then it's Thomas Burgess and Boyko Shopov in 5th and 6th place. Pavel Ivanov in 7th. Julian Janowski in 8th place. Joris Ums, the first of the Automech drivers, in 9th place. He's alongside Iodanin Svetanov. Ventsislav Rachinov in 11th place alongside Rovavek. Rostislav Kochev in 13th, Georgy Atanasov in 14th place. Then it's Ivo Serafimov in 15th, Alexander Nikolov Jr. in 16th position. He's the first of the AMs, so one of the BMWs got up there right at the end, the negative Delta Academy entry. Ivalo Dimitrov in 17th place ahead of Milen Milchev. Vladimir Mavrodiev in 19th, and rounding out the top 20, the 108 of Plamen Dimitrov for negative Delta Academy. Asen Dramaliev in 21st place alongside Alexander Nikolov, I assume senior, in 22nd place. Orlin Malinov in 23rd. Bozidar Andreev in 24th position. Krastin Stanchev only 25th. That's an upset within the AM order. 26th, Lazar Katzarski. Dimitar Palauzov in 27th. Then it's Charles Kellyman, Alexander Snakov, and Bozidar Parvanov rounding out our 30-car order. So then the cars will roll in just a few minutes onto the formation lap. And then they will be trying to get some heat into the tyres ahead of the 20-minute race. You see there in front of the cars Panos logo painted onto the circuit. Of course, Don Panos, the father of what we consider today to be the kind of standard of American endurance racing, the precursor to the current IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. The American Le Mans Series was Don Panos' project when it came into being in 1999. It's fair to say that Don rejuvenated the US top-line sports car racing scene, and of course manufactured a great many iconic cars on the way as well. Panos Esperante GTR1, a car that many sim racing fanatics will be familiar with, especially those that initially cut their teeth on the PlayStation on Gran Turismo. Even if you were on the Xbox side of things, the Panoses were a big part of Forza as well, and they've been on pretty much every PC racing sim. So if you've been PC all of your sim racing life, you'll certainly know about Panos too. So the formation lap is ongoing. It'll be Koenig and Shopov side by side into the first corner. Shopov, of course, your championship leader. Koenig, third in the championship. Koenig needs to do more at this stage than Shopov. 63 points off the championship lead at this stage of the season. By no means a disaster, with 150 points on the table. However, 150 points on the table each weekend. However, it is still something that he will want to beat, and he'll certainly want a good weekend. I think for Koenig, no less than 2 podiums will be what he wants out of this weekend. Of course, always racing drivers want the top step of said podium, but I think 2 strong results is exactly the tonic that Philip Koenig requires this weekend. Of course, Viktor Varbanov second in the championship. You see him there with the number 1 car. He will also be looking to get a solid weekend in there. And Connor Brown, of course, the only Ferrari within the top 15, a driver who's gone his own way, picked the car that perhaps isn't as favoured. He will want to prove that his decision is a wise one here, by showing what the Ferrari 296 GT3 can do. Onto the back straight they go then. Does look like we've got some connection issues between broadcast and Joris Ooms. Hopefully he's not causing any issues for those in the server. 2x2 formation then as they approach Sunset Bend. And in a few short seconds, those lights will go and we will be racing. Will it be Koenig? Will it be Shopov that leads into the first corner? There you see the issue with Joris Ooms disappearing in and out of shot alongside Iodorn and Svetanov. So then, 2x2 formation. They look to the start gantry. And we will now go racing at Sebring. And it's not really 2x2 formation, some 2-3 wide as the race gets underway. Koenig with a nose ahead, but Shopov on the inside line. It should be Slot Shopov that leads it. Yes, it is. And Viktor Varbanov has snuck through in second place as well. Through the wide turn one they go. And it's Porsche from Lamborghini from Porsche. Connor Brown getting swallowed up a little bit there. He's down in 6th place as they come through the opening sequence of Bend side by side there with Julian Janowski. In fact, down to 7th place now, Connor Brown. So he's not had a great start at all. Everybody appears to have gotten through the first few corners cleanly. Milen Milchev has worked his way to the front of the AM class. Alexander Nikolov Jr. has lost some places in the midfield within the AM class, further back in the back. Bozidar Andreev is a little bit further down the order than one may expect as well. 21st. A couple of bad weekends in a row so far from Bozidar Andreev, but he'll be looking to challenge and move his way up into the top 15, top dozen before the end of the race. However, he's under pressure there further back in the field in his Grello Manthey machine. Everybody through Tower Bend then. It's Vladislav Shopov that leads the way from Viktor Varbanov in 2nd place. Koenig held on to 3rd position at the start, but won't be happy to have lost a place in the early going. We get a replay of the 106 car here. Oh dear, that was just an unexpected snap for the off-track racing Lamborghini of Dimitar Palazov. It looks like he might have gone into pit lane after that, so that's a shame for him. Alexander Sakov has also ended up in pit lane. Through Sunset they go. Porsche swapping positions on the fringes of the top 10. Svetanov in 10th place at the moment. Meanwhile, Varbanov under a lot of pressure here from Koenig, who goes all the way around the outside at the first corner. That's very, very committed driving from Koenig. And Burgess also looking to get involved in that as well. In the 21 car, Thomas Marks Burgess. Start to the race then for Koenig. He did lose 2nd place, but he's now back in P2. The first of the Lamborghinis, Varbanov in 3rd place. There goes Shopov. Boyko Shopov, that is, diving to the inside for JRS vertical grip. But Burgess manages to just about hold on to 4th position. Quite easily done that. You can take a bit too much speed off yourself with late braking into a hairpin corner. And the other driver just swings around the outside of you. Connor Brown in 7th place. He's under pressure from the semi-ghosted Joris Ooms. Ooms in 8th position. Then it's Ivanov and Iordan and Svetanov rounding out your top 10 at this stage of the race. Of course, 20 minutes will be the race duration, so not much time to make your way through the order if you had a bad qualifying. Bozidar Andreev is there among the AM class leaders in 18th overall right now. He would love to work his way into the top 10 to have a good tilt at the second race from the front row of the grid. Here comes Connor Brown looking to the inside of Julian Janowski. With the high ground there, the inside line, that should be a fairly simple move, but no, the undercut there from Janowski. Very well executed, both side by side as they come out onto the main straight. Great driving between the pair of them, respectful and close. Looks like Connor Brown may well have 6th position, but we've already seen that the Porsches can hang around the outside. Koenig did it earlier on, but Janowski not trying it on that occasion. Connor Brown remains in a very, very hotly contested 6th position for all of the corner. Oh, but the Porsche there tagging the Ferrari, and Janowski got the worst of it there. He ends up with Joris Ooms alongside him, and Ooms into the barrier. Now, I don't know if Janowski was seeing Ooms the entire time, or whether he's in and out on his screen like he is on ours, but certainly contact there. And Ivanov with 2 instances of contact that he did very well to get the better of. Or sorry, I should say Janowski with 2 instances of contact that he certainly did well to get the better of there, because quite easily he could have been in a spin there after Connor Brown's moment with him. Now Pavel Ivanov wants to play, and he's tagged on the rear of Janowski. 8th, 9th and 10th, all negative delta by Madness. Porsche 992 GT3Rs, identical liveries, all entered under the same team naturally. And those 3 looking feisty behind the Impulse Racing, or sorry, the Chekhov Rally School entry. That is Julian Janowski. Shopov, Koenig, Varbanov, your top 3. Shopov is some 3 seconds clear already at the front of the order. That's a very big margin for the Impulse Racing Porsche driver. Has managed to gap himself then away from Koenig, which I wasn't necessarily expecting. I thought those top 3 might be in line with each other all race, but no, Shopov has the pace. There's Alexander Nikolov Jr. He sits 2nd in AM. He's just behind Joris Ooms at the moment. Nikolov Jr. in the 120 car. Your leader in AM is Avelo Dimitrov once again for Reserve Racing. The Reserve Racing Ferrari at the front in AM, as it was for a while in qualifying. Of course, it was Nikolov Jr. who ultimately had the pole position within AM coming out of that qualifying session, but he lost positions on lap 1. He's now working his way back up, though. Here is that midfield skirmish as, oh, goodness me, that is a very second-hand Porsche. That is the 109 car of Bozidar Parvanov. He will not get his deposit back on that car. Malinov getting into it there with one of the other BMWs as well. I think that was Milen Milchev. Yes, Milchev involved in a big collision. I'll tell you what, that took out a number of cars. JRS Ferrari, a lot of the top AM contenders got taken out in that one. Alexander Nikolov, Planen Dimitrov, Milen Milchev, though, one of the big ones who got caught out in that, and I believe perhaps Bozidar Andreev as well, because he's 24th and in the pit. So Andreev, unfortunately, not getting a good run of this race. Hopefully he'll be back out there for race 2. But we've lost a number of cars there from the AM battle. That is a big shame for Milen Milchev, 2nd in the AM Championship coming into this weekend. He's going to lose some ground to Krastin Stanchev after that one. Boyko Shopov then in 6th position. Just behind Connor Brown, so Brown is back into the top 5 now. Here is your AM class lead battle with a disappearing Porsche in the middle of it. Ivelo Dimitrov, hopefully, again, I really do hope they're not having to contend with the visual issue that we're seeing, because if that is the case, that must be so disconcerting for those around Joris Ooms. Ivelo Dimitrov up in 15th place then, your AM class leader, and the BMW with the Porsche sometimes between them is the car 2nd in AM. So Nikolov there in 2nd place. Alexander Nikolov Jr., 2nd in the AM class. He's proven to be the quickest of the AM drivers over 1 lap here at Sebring. And he's very quickly closing in on Ivelo Dimitrov. A little bit of dust being kicked up there as they head through the kinks towards Fangio at the moment. Oh, a big dive there from Joris Ums, and that has put the Ferrari onto the grass. Dimitrov overtaken by Nikolov Jr. Side by side for the AM class lead, with a Porsche in and out of the battle as well. And Nikolov Jr. backs out of that one, does he? No, it's still side by side as they go through. Towards Tower Bend they go, and somehow finding room for two cars. Very impressive racing between both of them. Nikolov Jr. on the inside. Surely that's his position. Yes, it is. The AM lead changes hands. And just behind them, third in AM, Vladimir Mavrodiev was closing in as well. So I think that AM battle is going to go through a few more switches before the end of this race. We're 10 minutes into the 20-minute duration of this race. Lazar Kaczarski there rounding out the top 20 at the moment. There are only 21 cars left running on the lead lap. Has been a chaotic start to the day here at Sebring in the SimGear GT3 Premier League. Ventsislav Rachinov studying the rear of Iordanin Svetanov at the moment. Through turn one they go, bouncing across the old concrete here. If racing surfaces could talk, Sebrings would have the most stories, but it certainly has its own challenges as well. Been a lot of resurfacing down at that area of the circuit that they've been through just now. That's in real life. That hasn't quite been reflected on iRacing just yet, but there is some new tarmac there. And that is the thing. It's basically a gradual patch job that goes on at Sebring. You end up with different quality and different ages of surface year on year around this circuit. That's one of the unique character traits of the venue, though. Sebring without the bumps would be a bit like Spa without the elevation change. Garbanov running in third place. We ride on board with him, with Thomas Marks Burgess posing for picture just behind. Great rear view shot here. Marks Burgess for Impulse Racing. Of course, it's Impulse Racing leading the way with Vladislav Shopov, who's again extended his lead, 4.1 seconds between himself and Koenig in second place. Varbanov third, Marks Burgess in fourth position, and Connor Brown rounds out the top five in another Impulse Racing entry, the Ferrari rounding out your top five. Thomas Marks Burgess bouncing through the final corner right in the wheel tracks of Viktor Varbanov. Ventsislav Rachinov, meanwhile, fighting his negative delta teammate at the moment for 9th and 10th position. Of course, this is provisionally your front row for race number 2. Certainly the negative delta team would like to see that, and all negative delta top 2 as the race begins. But they've got to not only fight each other, of course, because there's a position at stake, but they've also got to try and hold off the man behind them, Rostislav Kochev from the Jekov Rally Team entry. And certainly all of those drivers just outside the top 10 will be looking at that number 10 like a bullseye. They want that pole position, they want that opportunity to go podium hunting in race number 2. It's a great system. It brings in some new faces up at the sharp end each weekend. There's always at least 1 or 2 surprise packages in the top 5 going into the beginning of race number 2. But it's Vladislav Shopov demonstrating at the moment at the sharp end of the order why he is our championship leader. 4.5 seconds clear of Philip Koenig. Koenig just over a second clear of this battle for third place between Varbanov and Burgess at the moment. We've got 14 minutes of this race elapsed so far. I think they'll get maybe 3 more laps out of this one. All but drifting wide there is the Lamborghini. A bad run out of the corner. Down the back straight we go. And Burgess with the inside line, with the speed advantage coming onto the straight. The Lamborghini is a little bit stronger by the time they get to the end of the straight. But I think Burgess will have done enough here unless Varbanov can really make it work around the outside. He's going to try and undercut, I'm sure, to try and get a good run down the main straight. That's exactly what he does. They're still side by side, having switched sides, as it were, and the inside line still with Burgess on the approach to the first corner. Surely Thomas Marks Burgess has done enough. He has the inside line. He has third position, but Varbanov now needs to try and fight back and rally, ironically, in the Jehov Rally School back machine. Great move then from Marks Burgess, capitalised on the smallest of errors from Viktor Varbanov. Can't afford to make a small slip-up at this level. Will almost certainly cost you. And that's what Viktor Varbanov found out there, but Viktor knows it all too well, of course. He wears that number 1 on his car for a reason. The defending champ. But Varbanov demoted off the podium there by Thomas Marks Burgess. Marks Burgess not a factor in the championship particularly, only 25th in the standings. Of course, hasn't been in it for the whole season. Could certainly be a challenger for the top 10 before the end of the year. There's Vladislav Shopov at the front of the order. The gap out to 5 seconds now. He's done everything right over the course of this race distance. Not a foot wrong. Wide there onto the straight. It's a very cheeky line. I don't think they'd let them get away with it consistently in real life, but part of the game here in iRacing is to figure out what the game will punish you for, or what the platform will punish you for and what it won't. It's the case with every type of racing. See what you can get away with, push the envelope, and if no one says anything, keep doing it. Lazar Kaczarski in 20th place there, just behind Charles Kellyman. Kellyman in the third Automech Psycho Radios entry. Of course, that's the Ferrari, as opposed to the 2 Porsches being run by Ooms and Vivek. And Kellyman currently 19th place. That's a fight for 4th in AM. The AM lead still with Alexander Nikolov Jr. at the moment, and he's a good couple of seconds clear now of Dimitrov. Madrodjev, meanwhile, is pressuring Dimitrov for 2nd in the AM class, as Viktor Varbanov is pressuring Burgess for 3rd overall. This will be then the penultimate lap of the race. We saw in quali, of course, the lap's just over 2 minutes in length. And that means we can expect a 10-lap race on this occasion. Not quite sure whether we'll end up with 19 or 20 laps in at the 40-minute feature later on. There's Venceslav Rachinov then, in the number 5 car, still there in 10th place, currently on course to start race 2 from pole position. Stacking up, though, behind Julian Janovsky at the moment. Iordanin Svetanov trying to find his way past. And Rachinov in 10th place. Looks like Svetanov is fairly comfortable. I'm not so sure about Janovsky, though. Looking to the inside there is Svetanov, trying to find his way through, trying to get some extra points on the board in this sprint race, even though it is at the expense of a position on the grid for the feature. Vladislav Shopov will be beginning his final lap of the race, this time by. This is the penultimate lap of racing. Porsche Carrera Cup energy as the 992 GT3Rs stack up behind each other on the run down to sunset. Svetanov remains in 9th position then. Janovsky has staved off the pressure for the time being, and now Rachinov may sense an opportunity to have a go at his teammate. The negative Delta team will be watching through their hands at the moment, hoping that nothing goes awry on this final lap, because again, as it stands, that will be Svetanov and Rachinov on the front row of the grid. Two negative delta by madness machines. However, they've got to be wary as well of Kochev in 11th place, who was really closed back in there through the first few corners of the lap, while everyone else has been preoccupied with their own battles. I think Kochev has just hit his marks, hit his apexes, and is right on the rear of Rachinov, and I think Rachinov feels that pressure a little bit. No pressure on Vladislav Shopov, though. No pressure, though, on Vladislav Shopov at the front of the order. Just 5.6 seconds away. I say just, that's quite the advantage. Coming now on to the back straight for the final time. Shopov just moments away from victory. Rounds the final corner, round sunset. And now, with a bit of a twitch, coming out of the final corner, will take the win in commanding fashion. Vladislav Shopov extends his championship lead. Philip Koenig takes second place. Third position for Thomas Marks Burgess. He claims third position from fifth on the grid. Varbanov in fourth. Connor Brown in fifth place. Boyko Shopov should have sixth position ahead of Pavel Ivanov. And what will the front row of the grid be? It will be a negative Delta Academy front row. Or sorry, negative Delta by Madness front row. Jordanin Svetanov and Ventislav Rachinov finish 9th and 10th place. And Rachinov will be our pole sitter for the 40-minute feature race. The AM winners just coming across the line now. It's Nikolov Jr. that takes the AM class win. 16th position overall ahead of Mavrodiev in second place in AM. So Mavrodiev will be fairly happy with that. Dimitrov eventually only third. So he lost out on second place in AM at the end of that race. I did say that the Ferrari was being closed in on by the leading off-track racing BMW. And sure enough, Mavrodiev managed to make his way through. Your top 20 across the line, then a few cars still expected across the line at the moment. There is Vladislav Shopov. Now, what, has he run out of fuel? Was he running it that tight on petrol? I don't know. There's Sakov in at 21st place in the Castrol Porsche. There is, of course, no GT3 Toyota, so if you like your Castrol colours, you have to get your kicks elsewhere. And the Porsche comes across the line to take 21st overall. Just a couple of cars expected across the line before we can finalise these race results. I think just about everybody that was in the pit lane, actually about half of the drivers that were in the pit lane, did eventually get their cars back out there on circuit. So it's some of those stragglers that did not get the chance to cross the line on the lead lap that are now crossing the line. I think that was Krastin Stanchev who just went past the start-finish. But Vladislav Shopov has started his weekend in the best way possible. He's just ahead of Philip Koenig and Thomas Burgess at the sharp end of the order. Viktor Varbanov in fourth, Connor Brown in fifth, Boyko Shopov sixth, Pavel Ivanov in seventh place ahead of Julian Janovsky, Jordanin Svetanov, and your race to pole sitter, Ventislav Rachinov. Kochev in 11th place, Atanasov in 12th, Roy Vivek in 13th place ahead of Ivo Serafimov and Yoris Ums. In 16th place is where you find the first of the AM runners, Alexander Nikolov Jr. for Negative Delta Academy, taking the AM win ahead of Mavrodiev and Dimitrov, taking us down to 18th place. In 19th position is Lazar Kaczarski, ahead of Charles Kellyman, rounding out your top 20 and your top 5 in AM. Bozidar Andreev just behind Alexander Sakov, two pro drivers there in 21st and 22nd place. Krastin Stanchev, Dramaliev, Palazov, Parvanov, Milchev and Dimitrov taking us down to 28th. 29th and 30th, Nikolov and Malinov. But of course, all of those drivers from about 22nd place down were caught up in incidents around the circuit during that 20-minute race. After some messages from our commercial partners, we'll be back with the 40-minute pit stop race. Well then, it's time for the feature race. 40 minutes of action about to get started. Top 10 reversed based on the race results we just saw. That means that Ventuslav Rachinov is our pole sitter alongside Jordan Svetanov. Julian Janovsky on row 2 of the grid, and Pavel Ivanov makes it 3 negative delta Porsches in the top 4. Boyko Shopov in 5th place alongside Connor Brown in P6. He'll be looking to try and work his way towards the front. Viktor Varbanov in 7th position. Thomas Burgess in 8th place. Philip Koenig in 9th position. And your championship leader, your race 1 winner, Vladislav Shopov, starts from P10. Kochev in 11th place. Atanasov in 12th position. That's our first 6 rows of the grid. Roy Vivek in 13th place, Ivo Serafimov in 14th, Joris Ums in 15th place, and Alexander Nikolov Jr., the first of the AM runners, in P16. Vladimir Mavrodiev in 17th place, Ivelo Dimitrov in 18th, Lazar Kaczarski in 19th position. He is alongside Charles Kellyman. Alexander Sakov in 21st place, and Bozidar Andreev in 22nd. Krastin Stanchev in 23rd. And Dramaliev rounding out the top 24. 25th place is Palauzov. He's alongside Parvanov in 26th. Milchev, Dimitrov, Nikolov, and Malinov rounding out your 30 cars that are set to take the start for this, the all-important pit stop race, the feature race. We're expecting this to go somewhere in the region of 20 laps, perhaps 19 laps. Looks like we might be missing Palazov and Malinov from this race. Neither of them showing as on the circuit at the moment. So a couple of drivers have perhaps dropped off between races. Those were 2 drivers involved with incidents early on. And speaking of incidents early on, that has been a talking point, a topic of discussion this season in the SimGear GT3 Premier League. We've seen a lot of these feature races start off with a bang of the most literal sense. And they'll be hoping that's not the case this time. There you see a very pleasant sight to anyone at negative delta. A lot of their cars up at the sharp end. We get a replay though on the formation lap. Now that's unusual. We have Jorisum still jumping in and out of the picture. Now, did we have a stack up? We did, behind Bozidar Andreev. A couple of the cars getting into each other before they're even racing. And that will hopefully have done no more than a knock to the confidence. Hopefully no serious damage to anybody's cars. So then, 40 minutes of racing, Sebring circuit, pit stop will be required across the race distance. At Monza, we saw pretty much everyone pitting at the same time. Will the strategies be a bit different here? Certainly, it will be potentially more of a tyre game than a fuel game here versus Monza, but let's see what we do this time around. Rachinov and Svetanov, your top 2 for negative delta by madness. Their colleague Pavel Ivanov is behind them, starting from 4th position alongside Jekov Rally School's Julian Janovsky, who looked strong in the first race. He's in 3rd position. But what about the likes of Koenig, Shopov, Burgess, Varbanov, our top 4 from the previous race, starting 7th through 10th, of course, with the top 10 reverse grid. Vladislav Shopov would love to make it a perfect weekend, but he's got a lot of competition ahead of him. He is your championship leader. A championship lead that he extended in race 1. So for the second time today, they're in 2x2 formation through sunset. And the feature race at Sebring for the SimGear GT3 Premier League by BULERS begins now. We're underway. It looks like a great start there from Julian Janovsky. Janovsky on the inside line into the first corner. He might get both negative delta drivers if we're not careful. Everybody through the corner, 3, 4, 5 wide even. as everyone tries to make space. They all seemingly get through there okay, but it is Janovsky that leads the way for Jekov Rally School. Rachinov and Svetanov demoted to second and third place, then Connor Brown in fourth position. Then it's Viktor Varbanov up to fifth place. Varbanov has done a very good job off the line. He is up there in fifth place then in the Lamborghini, the only Lamborghini in the top 10. Your AM class leader is Bozidar Parvanov. He's had a brilliant start. He's up in 12th position in the 109 Breaking Point Porsche. On the verge of the top 10, you see there the black, white and red Porsche just through the middle of that pack. That is your AM class leader. Philip Koenig is down in 8th place. He's alongside Vladislav Shopov there, just going into the corner. Neither of them making quite the start that we saw out of Varbanov. Connor Brown has also made a good getaway. He is up to 4th position. Oh, but your AM leader across the grass there. Now that's in a very dangerous place. He's managed to rejoin without taking anybody out, but the field bunches up 2-3 wide altogether, with Bosdar Andreev leading them. Oh, and it was a tag from behind there, I think from Alexander Nikolov Jr. that set that into motion. I just wonder whether it's over yet, because everyone was stacked up together. And in fact, we have had some cars drop down the order there. But that is the replay of the 109 car going across the grass. While that's going on, everybody heading down the back straight then. Bozidar Andreev has had a great first lap of the race. He started 22nd. There he is in 12th position in the Grello liveried Rodopa Racing Team entry. Oh, and a spin there for one of the JRS cars. Was that Kochev, was it? One of them having a big moment. Ventsislav Rachinov in second position, but Svetanov is coming to his inside line. Look at the top 6, all bunched together here. Great racing. Janovsky, Rachinov, Svetanov, Brown, Varbanov, Burgess, your top 6. But here comes the Lamborghini. Connor Brown having to work hard here to keep the Lambo at bay for the time being. And Philip Koenig is also now on the back of this pack as well, just behind Boyko Shopov. 7 cars, 8 cars. It might even be a 10-car train at this point for the lead. Very, very close run thing. And it is still Vladislav Shopov, your race winner from earlier on, that is at the back of this car 10-car queue. The number 10 car, Boyko Shopov, looking to the inside of Thomas Marks Burgess there, but Burgess holds on to 6th position, just behind Viktor Varbanov. Vladislav Shopov to the inside there of Georgi Atanasov. I think that'll be a move for 9th position. I think he has gotten through there. Yes, he has. So we're now starting to see some progress out of Shopov. Julian Janovsky that leads the way off a very, very good launch at the beginning of this race. He is your leader for the time being. But look at that queue of cars. In 2000's Formula One, that would have been a truly train. And that's what we've got at the moment, a big, big pack of cars. Now, how will the pit stop strategies vary across this race? I think that's going to depend on the progress of drivers like these two here, Koenig and Shopov. If they can't get their way through the order by making up positions on track, they might try and alternate their strategy, get some clear air, and get past that way through the pit window. Koenig for now, just on the back of Boyko Shopov for 7th position. It is JRS Vertical Grip versus German Sim Racing. Oh, but off track there goes Boyko Shopov. Can't afford to do that too often. He was very lucky that the car didn't get away from him there. Philip Koenig then with an opportunity, but he's on the outside line into the braking zone. Goes around the outside nonetheless. Through the pinch point, coming out of the hairpin onto the Fangio chicane, and he is through into 7th place. Good opportunistic driving there from Koenig. Meanwhile, Rachinov is making life very hard for Janovsky at the front of the order. Janovsky, I think, driving through the mirrors a little bit there, getting a bit ragged through Cunningham Corner. Nikolov Jr. still 13th overall and leading in the AM class. Your overall lead battle so close together at the moment, just a 10th apart as they go into the braking zone for Gendebian Straight, or Gendebian Bend, I should say. This is Le Mans Curve. Onto the back straight they go. And that is a very good run from Rachinov. Rachinov might just have this. He's got the inside line, and he's got the better run out of the corner. He's got a nose ahead now as they run down. Will Janowski try and do the undercut here? I think that might be the plan. Yes, look, dives to the inside early, going through Sunset, and just about gets cut off there, though. Janowski in second place then. Rachinov is your new race leader, and here comes Iodornin Svetanov. Is this now the dam opening, the dam breaking for Janowski? Is everyone going to try and find their way through? Svetanov around the outside at turn one. Brave move. Still there is Janowski, though, for Jekov Rally School. And he should just about hold on to second place. Connor Brown in fourth position, trying to find his way through as they bounce across the curbs in the first sector. Then it's Varbanov in the Lambo in fifth position. He hasn't made any progress since making that positive start to the race. Already some lap traffic up ahead of them as well in a little while to contend with. I think that might be the recovering Orlin Malinov, who did eventually get started. In fact, no, he didn't. It might well be Charles Kellyman, actually, who's a lap down. Rachinov and Janowski just a second apart, but Rachinov, now that he's gotten through, seems to be starting to build a gap. And of course, for everybody behind Janowski, this is now excruciating because they're seeing Rachinov drive off, and this is exactly the opportunity that Rachinov needs. Connor Brown will be very keen to get through, as will Svetanov. And then, of course, it is your championship protagonists from there on back. Varbanov, of course, Burgess not necessarily in the championship hunt, but they're in sixth place. Koenig, Shopov, the other Shopov, Vladislav Shopov, actually all over the back of Boyko Shopov there for eighth position as they go through Le Mans Curve. Gets the inside line, side by side, down the back straight. It's Vladislav versus Boyko. Shopov warfare. And the number 2 car looking to the inside. Let's see if Vladislav can do it. He's got the inside line. That usually works out, but of course, if you're wise with it, you can sometimes go around the outside here at Sunset, which is exactly what Boyko tried to do, but not quite working out for him. Vladislav Shopov then up into 8th place. The progress is steady, but at least it is happening for him as Kellyman tries to get out of the way there. In fact, that was Lazar Kaczarski making himself scarce. Connor Brown to the inside. Is that a move for 3rd place? Yes, it is. Hip check between Brown and Svetanov, and that knocks Svetanov down to 5th place. It might even be 6th position. Contact between the two of them, and that certainly worked against Iordanin Svetanov. He's down to 5th place. May even be P6 soon, because behind him is Burgess. Then it's Koenig as well. Burgess later on the brakes by the looks of it, has the inside line into the hairpin. And that will be 5th place for Burgess. Here comes Koenig. Koenig in the slipstream as well. This is really difficult stuff now for Svetanov. Started the lap in 3rd position. It looks like he might well end up in 7th place by half distance on this lap. Yes, indeed. Koenig then up to 6th place. He's making good progress. Now Koenig, I think, will be hoping that the man in 8th place, Vladislav Shopov, doesn't get an easy ride here out of Iordanin Svetanov. Of course, Svetanov will be very frustrated with how he's lost positions on that lap. I doubt he's going to make it easy for Vladislav Shopov. He has every right to make it difficult for him. Shopov, though, to the inside line and gets through as well. Svetanov may be struggling with something after that contact. Boyko Shopov and Georgi Atanesov rounding out your top 10 then, but Vladislav Shopov up to 7th. He's still there behind Filip Koenig then. But Ventislav Rachinov still making up time at the front of the order. The gap is out to 1.8 seconds. Of course, Janowski was being attacked by Svetanov. But with that moment for Svetanov on the previous lap, that's no longer the case. Janowski now being slightly closed in by Connor Brown, but he's got his own track space now for a little while. The battling is really going on in the back half of the top 10 at the moment. We are 10 minutes into this 40-minute race, around half distance. Just after half distance, we might start to see some of these mandatory pit stops served. It is Ventsislav Rachinov that leads the way for Negative Delta. It's been a very solid effort so far from the driver of the number 5. Boyko Shopov just behind Jordan and Svetanov at the moment in the battle for 8th place. You see there in 10th place now is Pavel Ivanov, so Atanisov has lost out to him. Alexander Nikolov Jr. still leading the way in AM for Negative Delta Academy in the big BMW. Oh, and that's a big dive from Ivo Serafimov, and that was never going to work. The 28 car looked like it's got some rear suspension damage that may have already been there. I wonder if that's not the first moment between those two. Who did he take out there? We'll get a replay. It was the 108 car, wasn't it? Yes, it was. Serafimov dove to the inside of the Ferrari of Ivaylo Dimitrov, and Plamen Dimitrov was then the bystander in that. Was heavy contact and an overall lack of braking. It was a pretty hefty collision, to say the least. Connor Brown then in 3rd position, with Viktor Varbanov in the Lamborghini behind him in 4th place. Of course, Varbanov coming into this weekend 2nd in the points. Wants to at least retain that over Philip Koenig, and if possible, of course, he'd like to try and give himself a closer points versus the leader, Vladislav Shopov. Shopov in 7th at the moment, Varbanov in 4th. Narrowing down that gap will be all important heading into next weekend, and the Simgear GT3 Premier League takes to Spa-Francorchamps. Janowski is once again under pressure here. I don't think Julian Janowski has had a moment of peace in this race. Was initially the race leader after a good getaway, of course. And has since then been holding on to 2nd position with a number of cars in his rearview mirrors, and it's currently Connor Brown that leads the charge. 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th and 7th place all stacked up there behind Julian Janowski. Brown with a good run there, it looks like, out of the Le Mans curve. Won't be close enough for a move at Sunset, but will close in slightly with the effect of the slipstream. You can see him inching closer down the straight, taking a wider berth into Sunset here to try and get a better run through the corner. That's worked quite well for him. You see there, shallower at that point of the corner. Gives him a better run out of the turn, but no closer ultimately to the rear of Janowski as they cross the line. Janowski then remains in 2nd place. Milen Milchev and Asen Dramaliev are having a good scrap further back as well, around 20th position in AM. But this is the battle we follow at the moment. Look at that compacting up going on there. Burgess and Koenig are very close together in 5th and 6th position. Burgess had Koenig all over the back of him as they hopped over the curbs there. And Koenig still in the wheel tracks of the Impulse Racing Porsche. That's two UK and Ireland drivers in the top 5. Then our first German competitor, Koenig, in 6th position. Here's the Bulgarian racer, Ventsislav Rachinov, at the front of the pack. Asen Dramaliev there, side by side with Nikolov in the battle for 21st position. So Dramaliev has already dropped back behind Milen Milchev in the BMW. He's now under pressure from Nikolov as well. Looks like Dramaliev is maybe slightly struggling with that Ferrari in the feature race. Pavel Ivanov then in 10th position. Just pursuing Boyko Shopov and Yordanin Svetanov. Svetanov will be disappointed to be down there in 8th place. Was rather unceremoniously thrown out of this lead queue. I think Brown, under more pressure from Varbanov than anything at this point now. I think he's probably focusing more on what's going on behind him at the moment, as opposed to what's going on in front of him. Here are the off-track racing BMWs, or a couple of them anyway. They are running in tandem. That was Stanchev and Mavrodiev running 2nd and 3rd in the AM class battle. They are some 8 seconds, I think, back from Alexander Nikolov Jr., who leads that class at the moment. So it's an all BMW top 3, but the off-track racing cars losing out to the Negative Delta Academy driver in AM at the moment. It is almost half distance in this race already. It's flown by so far, as it always does here in the SimGear GT3 Premier League. Rachinov, Janowski, Connor Brown, your top 3. Viktor Varbanov there in 4th position. Then it's Thomas Marks Burgess, Philip Koenig, and Vladislav Shopov. Shopov, your race winner from the earlier sprint race. 7th overall at the moment, having started the race from 10th place, courtesy of the reverse grid format. By no means has he had any element of this race easy so far. It's such a competitive field within both classes, the Pro and the AM class in the SimGear GT3 Premier League. So that top 10 among the Pro runners, the top 10 reverse grid, really does have a big effect. As we're seeing from Ventsislav Rachinov at the front. Our pole sitter at the start of this race. He's 2.4 seconds clear of Janowski. And you're seeing there what opportunity that top 10 reverse grid can be. Vladimir Mavrodiev there getting past his off-track racing cohort, I think. In fact, no, defending, I think, against Krastin Stanchev. That battle for 2nd place, even though it's among teammates, is still very close. We've had Varbanov, though, move into 3rd place. Viktor Varbanov has gotten past Connor Brown for 3rd place overall. There we see the Lamborghini now ahead of the Ferrari. So the JRS vertical grip Lamborghini has made up a position. Connor Brown has lost out. So Janowski now has yet another different car in his rearview mirrors. Looks like that was set up through the first corner, and by the time they got to turn 2, Varbanov had the inside line. He was braver, certainly, on the brakes. And that's 3rd position then for Varbanov. Janowski now under pressure. We're approaching half distance in the race. I would anticipate that within the next 3 laps, most of the field will likely venture towards pit lane, I'd hazard a guess. Varbanov now in the podium positions then. Critically, of course, his championship target, the championship leader Vladislav Shopov, only in 7th place. If he can get his way past Janowski and go hunting while Ivanov continues to sit there, while Shopov continues to sit there in 7th place. That will do him all manner of favours. And here comes Varbanov, a great run down the back straight. Viktor Varbanov is up to 2nd position then. Clear track for the first time in this race for Viktor Varbanov. He will now be looking at Rachinov up ahead and going, right, that's my task, that's my target. Now, I must say, if I was the likes of Vladislav Shopov or Philip Koenig, I'd now be considering a pit stop to try and find some clear air out there on the circuit. To the inside there of Connor Brown goes Burgess. It looked quite coordinated to me. I think Connor Brown let Burgess through there. That looked to me as though the Ferrari didn't put up much of a fight, and of course they are Impulse Racing colleagues. Connor Brown looks like he's slowing in general. In fact, Koenig getting the opportunity to go through here as well. Doesn't look like Connor Brown is particularly slow, but it certainly looks like he's keeping himself out of the way at the moment. And that's a big shame for Connor. We've scarcely seen that car out of the top 5 so far this weekend. And look at the gap coming down already between Rachinov and Varbanov. It was 2.3 seconds at the start of the lap. It's now already down to 1.9. Now that Varbanov is in clear space, suddenly the race is changing character significantly. Shopov has gotten past Connor Brown as well, as you saw on screen. That releases Philip Koenig into the top 5. But these are critical moments in the race for Viktor Varbanov. He's got clear space. He's got the leader as a target up ahead. And all of the other front runners from race 1 are still stacked up in the main queue. The Lamborghini has built a second's worth of gap already over Janowski in 3rd place, as you can see there. Here comes Thomas Marks Burgess trying to get past Janowski, but it's proven very difficult to find a way past the JRS vertical grip car so far in this race. 4 Porsches taking 4 very different lines through Sunset. Has anybody decided to visit the pits this time? No. Marks Burgess on the back of Janowski in this battle for 3rd position. Oh, and one of the Ferraris coming out just ahead of them there. That's, of course, one of our AM-class front runners there in Ivelo Dimitrov. But I think Dimitrov, yeah, just making a routine stop, I think, but coming out just in front of the leading pack. Meanwhile, Viktor Varbanov is now down to a second away. He's over-halved the gap between himself and Rachinov in the race lead. Give it another half a lap, and I think Varbanov will be on the back of Rachinov. If they don't both make pit stops, I think next time by we'll see them on top of each other across the main straight. Right on board with Janowski in 3rd place then. Burgess and Koenig both right there with him. And of course Vladislav Shopov in 6th place as well, who has incrementally made his way through the order. I think Connor Brown must have been hit with a slowdown. That's probably why he dropped off in such fashion, because he's still there and still seems to be setting a decent pace. Ventsislav Rachinov is your leader. Will we see a change for 3rd place, though? Because here comes Thomas Marks Burgess. He got the better run, and this time he's on the inside of Janowski. That surely is 3rd place changing hands. Burgess gets through. Janowski then down to 4th position. Rachinov, your race leader, in the pit lane, and that hands the race lead to Viktor Varbanov. Now that's great for Varbanov, because that means that he no longer has to close in and start getting the dirty air from Rachinov. That might well put him back into the race lead at the conclusion of this pit cycle, but we'll wait to see how that works. Vladislav Shopov has gotten past Koenig as well, so Shopov making up a position. He's up to 3rd place, but of course they've lost some cars from that queue, including Julian Janowski, who did come into pit lane. It was side by side between Shopov and Koenig coming down the straight. I wonder if Koenig got maybe slightly tripped up by somebody entering the pit lane, taking a different line through Sunset or something like that, but Koenig lost out to Shopov there. We ride on board with Vladislav Shopov just behind Thomas Marks Burgess, so an Impulse Racing 2-3-5 at the moment, with Connor Brown there in the Ferrari, also running for that team. And then it's German Sim Racing's Philipp Koenig in at 4th position. Cars just exiting pit lane at the moment then. We'll see how that all unfolds. Some of the AM leaders just leaving the pits. Nikolov Jr. has pitted, but the off-track racing BMWs have not. I'm anticipating that these drivers in the battle for second, all of our top 5, I expect that they will pit this time. Everyone from 6th back among the front runners has pitted. Let's see if anybody chooses their own adventure, though. Varbanov, of course, again, finally in clear track. He might decide to do another lap at speed here. We'll see. In fact, no, I think he's coming into the pit lane. Yes, he is. Let's see if everyone else follows suit then. 2nd, 3rd, 4th. Yes, they're all in. And Connor Brown as well. The top 5 all into the pit lane. The 3 Porsches basically as one as they roll down pit road here at Sebring. Of course, one big question is, where will Ventsislav Rachinov come out among these guys? They all stop on pit road. Rachinov will be making his way down the back straight at the moment. Here comes Viktor Varbanov. He will rejoin the race as the leader quite comfortably. And in fact, I think the entirety of the top 5 will rejoin the race ahead of Ventsislav Rachinov. Of course, a lap less fuel required, a little bit less time on pit road. And they've all had a very good in-lap. They've all come out ahead, except for Philipp Koenig. What's going on with Koenig? Philipp Koenig has not resumed the race. Perhaps a hardware issue or something like that for Philipp Koenig. But his car is still in the pit lane. Is just now exiting the pits. Oh, what a disaster for Philipp Koenig. Again, the pace is so clearly there with the German racer, but the fortune seems to keep going against him. He is down to 15th position. Another big twist in this championship. Our 3rd place man in the championship, Philipp Koenig, is down in 15th place. Meanwhile, your championship top 2 are 1st and 2nd. Varbanov leads the way. He's, of course, 2nd in the championship. And Vladislav Shopov has resumed the race right on his tail. Our championship leader, our race 1 winner, is right there with Varbanov. The pit cycle has played its chaotic cards once again. The order has changed somewhat, and Impulse Racing's Vladislav Shopov is there in 2nd place. Viktor Varbanov is under threat for the race lead. We are just over, or just under 11 minutes of this race left to go then. And this could be an all-out duel between 2 of the fastest racers in the BULERS community. 2 of the fastest drivers in the SimGear GT3 Premier League find themselves 1st and 2nd in this race, with 2 seconds between themselves and the battle for 3rd place being led by Thomas Marks Burgess. I think this one is going to get pretty feisty if an opportunity arises for Vladislav Shopov. The AM class lead has changed hands as well. Vladimir Mavrodiev has moved up to 13th overall, so he now leads in AM for off-track racing ahead of Krastin Stanchev. Nikolov sits in 16th position. That is Alexander Nikolov Sr. Nikolov Jr. is all the way down in 17th, so the former class leader for Negative Delta Academy. 4th place in class at the moment. It's now the battle of the Alexander Nikolovs on circuit. Negative Delta Academy BMW in P17, our former AM class leader. Oh, we had an off-track moment there as well for Milen Milchev. He'll lose out to Boyko Shopov as a result of that. Joris Ums there, just ahead of Parvanov. Boyko Shopov is indeed now challenging Milen Milchev. Now, Shopov, of course, was running strongly within the top 10 overall. He is a pro-cast driver. He's had something of a drama out there on circuit by the looks of it. Philip Koenig is just closing in on second place in AM as well, so he's behind the AM leaders, unfortunately, after his moment in pit lane. So there's Shopov, who's dropped down the order, and of course Philip Koenig, who also dropped down. He's just on the back of Stanchev. Georgi Atanasov to the inside here for 8th position. Up against Pavel Ivanov. Side by side coming across the line. All important championship points on the line, of course. Tanasov just losing out, though. Ivanov trying to hold on to this P8. Oh, but that's a good setup there from Atanasov. Got a good run through the first corner. Bit of a hip check between them through the S-bends. I think Atanasov has just about done enough there to move himself up to 8th place. That was very wise driving there from Atanasov. Atanasov currently 7th in the championship as well. Has been solid pretty much everywhere we've gone so far. Here's Nikolov Jr. still under pressure from Boyko Shopov. In fact, no, sorry, he's not. He's going around the outside of Nikolov Sr. Not quite able to find his way through, though. Dives to the inside at turn 2. That was audacious from Nikolov Jr. And it's still not quite working out. Very good racing here. Still side by side. And I'm sure Boyko Shopov respects what he's seeing, but he, with all due respect, wants to get through. And of course, all of this battling has brought in Milen Milchev as well for off-track racing. Milchev now getting a go to the inside of Nikolov Jr. Well, maybe that's the folly of youth, getting the better of Alexander Nikolov Jr. then. He was too busy trying to get through. And, well, he's ended up losing 2 positions rather than gaining 1. Koenig is now separating the 2 leading cars in AM. He's within a second of AM leader Mavrodiev as well. So Mavrodiev would probably look at the time deltas on his screen and maybe let Koenig through, because he's got a good advantage over Stanchev, who sits behind Koenig within the AM class battle. Boyko Shopov there, of course, a pro driver, interloping with this battle for 3rd in the AM class that's currently being led by Alexander Nikolov Sr. Joris Ums just behind Sakov at the moment as well, just outside the top 20. There's one of the other Lamborghinis, the off-track racing Lamborghini of Palazov. There's the off-track racing BMW, and there's been a big shift seemingly in the AM class battle. Milen Milchev may well have this. He's side by side with the Ferrari. Nikolov Sr. in the Ferrari on his outside. Nikolov Jr. in the BMW in his rear view mirrors as well. Milen Milchev for off-track racing just about moves through there into 3rd in AM, and I think Boyko Shopov probably played a role there in that positioning. But here comes the Ferrari. No, Nikolov can't quite get it done. Oh, and the Ferrari spinning, I think, there. I think the rear end of the Ferrari 296 just got away from Alexander Nikolov Sr. And that leaves the BMWs to duel it out there. Nikolov Jr. versus Milen Milchev. This now for 3rd in the AM class. Five minutes of this race left to go then. Your order, Viktor Varbanov, your race leader by 1.7 seconds over Vladislav Shopov. It looked like Shopov was going to go on the offensive against Varbanov, but that's proven not to be the case. 3rd place for Thomas Marks Burgess, Connor Brown in 4th place. Then it's Venceslav Rachinov, and he's under pressure from Julian Janowski. These two have basically been on the same piece of tarmac all race long. They sit 5th and 6th places at the moment. 7th place for Iordan and Svetanov, Atanasov 8th, Pavel Ivanov in 9th, and Rostislav Kochev rounding out your overall top 10 here at Sebring in the feature race. There's Alexander Nikolov Jr. He's also a little bit in and out, but he's having a good scrap here with Milan Milchev. Boyko Shopov has disappeared up the road now, meaning this battle for 3rd in AM can carry on without any further interference from the Porsche. We get a replay there of Nikolov in a spin. Alexander Nikolov Sr. in the 104 Jekov Rally Team Ferrari. An unfortunate end to a strong race for Nikolov Sr. Was on course for an AM podium, but now it's an all BMW top 4 within the AM class. I'd love to see how one of the top contenders in Pro would do in this BM, because it looks very strong in the AM class. I wonder if it being such a favoured platform in AM is perhaps an indication that it's one of the more stable cars to drive, if not the quickest, at least the most stable. And sometimes that's exactly what you want, especially around a circuit such as Sebring. Stability can really be a benefit. Shopov, meanwhile, is actually under pressure from his Impulse Racing teammates. Now, is Thomas Marks Burgess going to play the team game here? He's been closing in on Vladislav Shopov, and something tells me that perhaps Shopov won't have this all his own way for 2nd place. I suspect the edict will be, sure, you can race him, but don't race him too hard. And in fact, Shopov makes it very easy for Thomas Marks Burgess. I think Shopov recognising the pace is with his teammate and allowing Marks Burgess through. Now it's a 2.4 second gap between Marks Burgess and Varbanov. I don't think that's possible. But still very impressive pace in the 2nd stint of the race from Thomas Marks Burgess. Of course, Vladislav Shopov is fighting for this championship. And well, hopefully he doesn't regret the charitable action at the end of the season. But he recognised there that his teammate Thomas Marks Burgess was quicker. And even though Varbanov, his closest title rival, is there in 2nd place, he's decided to allow Burgess through. I tell you what, Burgess is chipping away just a 10th or so at a time over Varbanov. Again, don't think he'll be close enough, but we'll keep an eye on it. Nikolov Jr. with a good run there out of sunset. The sun is setting here, but the battle is just heating up for 3rd in AM. Milan Milchev to the inside at turn 1. That's going to be a slower entry through the corner, slower run through the apex. And Nikolov Jr. may have the run he needs here. He's got the inside line for turn 2. We know he can go deep on the brakes here. He does. Milan Milchev, though, firing back. Milchev with the inside line. And he does just about hold on to 3rd in AM. But this is going to be a battle that I think will continue on until the checkered flag. This will be the penultimate lap of the race. So Nikolov Jr. hasn't got long now to try and make his way by. Here's Philip Koenig as well, trying to get himself back into the top dozen, just behind Bosidar Andreev at the moment. What could have been for Koenig? I wonder why he was kept in the pit lane. Whether he had an issue on his end, whether there was some sort of penalty, I don't know. But Philip Koenig in the 13 car, nonetheless hassling Bosidar Andreev. White flag has gone out to Viktor Varbanov as Philip Koenig to the inside gets past the number 30 car. A bit of a flash there from Bosidar Andreev. So Viktor Varbanov has crossed the line to start the final lap of the race. We saw there that Nikolov Jr. and Milan Milchev continue to fight it out for the final podium position in the AM class, and Vladislav Shopov is still on the back of Thomas Marks Burgess. Boyko Shopov there getting past Stanchev. Of course, that is a pro car being allowed by there by the 2nd place car in AM. As it stands, it will be an all off-track racing BMW top 3 in the AM class, but that depends on Alexander Nikolov Jr. not getting past Milen Milchev. Milchev is really having to fight hard here for this AM podium. Off-track racing BMW will be having many a drink this evening if they get the AM podium sweep in this feature race. But Nikolov Jr. looking to play spoiler. Here's the battle for second place then. Will Vladislav Shopov have a go? I mean, he's still right there on the back of Thomas Marks Burgess. He allowed Burgess through, but he now seems to be fighting. I wonder if it was a slowdown penalty rather than an actual charitable act, perhaps, from Vladislav Shopov, because he really does seem to be pressuring Thomas Marks Burgess. This is the final lap of the race. Viktor Varbanov, 2 seconds clear at the front of the order. He is set to take the race victory there in the JRS vertical grip Lamborghini, but who from Impulse Racing will be across the line in second place? Shopov with a nose ahead now in second position. I think Shopov may have been allowed through. Nonetheless, Viktor Varbanov will cross the line to win in the Simgear GT3 Premier League feature race at Sebring. He takes it from Shopov in second place. Shopov did get through. Thomas Marks Burgess in third. Connor Brown in fourth, making it 3 in the top 4 for Impulse Racing. Negative deltas, Ventislav Rachinov in fifth, Janovsky sixth, Svetanov in 7th, Atanasov, Ivanov and Kochev will be your top 10. But what about the AM podium? The victory is more than likely going the way of Vladimir Mavrogiev. Then Krastin Stanchev, second for off-track racing BMW. The third place car is currently also an off-track racing BMW. Alexander Nikolov Jr. for Negative Delta Academy is challenging him. Milen Milchev tries to go defensive, tries to squeeze out the youngster from the Negative Delta Academy team. It's very, very close as they approach sunset. Who's going to have the inside line? Great racing between them. Nikolov Jr. trying to set himself up for a drag race out of the final corner. He's got good momentum through the turn. He tags Milen Milchev. It's still a drag race to the line, and it's a drag race that Milen Milchev will win, making it an all off-track racing BMW podium in the AM class. Joris Ums trying to get himself past the recovering Nikolov Sr. in the Ferrari, but not quite succeeding. What a race across both classes. Viktor Varbanov, though, after a brilliant first lap, he worked his way up into the top 5 in the early going. And ever since then, he has gradually worked his way up. It all came good, though, across that pit window. He got released from the pack behind Julian Janowski at just the right time, had a couple of laps in clean air before the pit window began. And Viktor Varbanov is your race winner for JRS Vertical Grip in the Simgear GT3 Premier League. Vladislav Shopov, though, will still be our championship leader. Second place. He'll only lose a few points once all is said and done to Viktor Varbanov. A great weekend from Shopov, a first place and a second place. That's as good as it gets. Philip Koenig on the other hand, though, 12th position. He will not be happy. Looks like some of our drivers still think they're racing. Vivek is still at racing speed with Kochev just ahead of him. I can assure you they have crossed the line. But they are still going at full speed. The last car across the line will be Kellyman in the Ferrari. I believe he will cross the line shortly and now has done so in 28th place. I believe everybody has now crossed the line. And Sebring has been every bit as exciting as we would expect it to be in the Simgear GT3 Premier League on Pit Lane TV. This has been a wonderful race, and it's a race won by Viktor Varbanov. Varbanov then tops the order by 1.9 seconds over Vladislav Shopov. Burgess and Brown following him home for Impulse Racing 2, 3 and 4. Ventislav Rachinov in 5th place. Julian Janowski in P6. Yordanin Svetanov in 7th place. Georgy Atanasov in 8th position. Pavel Ivanov in 9th. And Rostislav Kochev rounding out your top 10. Roy Vivek in 11th place ahead of Philip Koenig. He'll be disappointed with P12. Bozidar Andreev in 13th. Vladimir Mavrogiev in 14th position. He was the AM class winner, and it was an all off-track racing top 3 in AM Great result for them. Boyko Shopov taking 15th ahead of Stanchev and Milchev of Off-Track Racing. Alexander Nikolov Jr. couldn't quite do it. He finished 18th place ahead of Alexander Nikolov. Joris Ums in 20th place behind Alexander Nikolov. 21st place for Dimitar Kalazov in 21st place. Parvanov in 22nd, Dramaliev in 23rd, Zakov in 24th, Dimitrov 25th, Kaczarski, Serafimov, Kellyman, your finishers. Dimitrov and Malinov both not reaching the flag. I don't think Malinov took the start even, but what a dramatic race in the BULERS. SimGear GT3 Premier League Season 8 has been scintillating so far this year. And another positive weekend for Vladislav Shopov. He will exit this weekend, I think, with a greater lead in the points. And that's exactly what he would want to do at this stage of the season. Of course, this is weekend number 4 of 7. And so with each passing weekend, that 50 to 60 point buffer that he's been maintaining is more and more favourable. The fewer points that are left to score, the better a championship lead is, of course. Next up, of course, in the calendar is Spa, which will be another test entirely. However, I see we have a few drivers joining us now for the press conference. Why, it's off-track racing. Off-track racing BMW with a sweep of the AM podium. And I tell you what, Milan Milchev, we'll start with you. That was a very, very intense final lap, I'm sure.
Yeah. Alexander Nikolov is the good driver and very, very strong race with him.
And obviously, I mean, a sweep for off-track racing. I'm sure all three of you must be delighted.
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you.
for sure.
Krastin Stanchev, you took second in class ahead of Milen Milchev there. It looked like the second part of the race was pretty easy going for you. You didn't seem to have too much company on the circuit. But talk us through the early stages of the race. Obviously, it's always dramatic on the first lap, and we see you there in the pack on some of these replay shots, cars crashing and smashing around you. Survival is key in this race, isn't it?
Oh yes, yes, definitely, and I can summarize this with first half not so good, second half better. So
excellent, and of course the best second half of all, the best race of all in AM, going to Vladimir Mavrodiev. Vladimir, talk us through your race. How was it out there? A good AM win for you.
Yeah. Thank you. I actually didn't know till the end that I was first. It was, I guess, a nice safe race. I did avoid the crash at the beginning, and yeah, that's
Vadi did a great race. Yeah,
He's
you.
understating himself.
yeah. I tried to catch on with him, but I couldn't. So yeah, he did a great race.
Thank you.
All of you had a brilliant race. Off-track racing, BMWs first, second, and third in class, and of course the sister Lamborghini with a good result as well, with Dimitar Palazov at the wheel. Congratulations to off-track racing, and congratulations to all three of you. Our AM class podium, our AM class race winner, Vladimir Mavrodiev. Good work,
Thank
off-track
you.
racing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Let's hope we'll see each other again next time.
Hopefully so, guys. It's been great to see you doing so well. We'll now move on then into the pro class element of the press conference. And I see that Viktor Varbanov has joined us in record time. So, Viktor, I'm going to go to you first. That looked like a really good race for you in pro. I think you just got past Julian Janowski at a good time there, didn't you? You had a good couple of laps with clean air before your pit stop.
Yeah, I had great timing against Connor. I surprised him first corner, and then I had great timing with Yuli, and then the track was clear for me, so I had decent pace to run, and the race was perfect.
And we thought for a little while, at least I thought, that Vladislav Shopov might be closing in on you. He was right with you after the pit window, but it looked like the Lamborghini was just perfect for you. You managed to build that gap and eventually come home with a good couple of seconds clear.
Yeah, it was good for me. We talked with Vladi just a second ago, and he told me that he underfueled the car with 2 liters.
Ah,
Yeah, but he closed like 3-second gap on the box, and he was like second behind me after the box. So
okay.
it was almost the same in the end, like 2 seconds.
Interesting. Okay, well, Vladislav Shopov, I think, is here with us as well, so he can tell us that story from his perspective. Was that why you allowed Thomas through then? Because it looked like at one stage you kind of just let him through. Were you hoping to get a bit of a tow and use less fuel?
Well, I was hoping to save fuel behind him, but I was also hoping I'm going to finish the race.
Yes.
Because I looked at, I think 5 laps before the end, I looked at my fuel and it said 4.7 laps remaining. And yeah, that scared me. So I had to fuel save a lot, like massively. Pretty much 300 meters before the braking zone, I had to like lift and coast. And that was every major braking zone. So yeah, not fun. Not going to do it again. Probably going to overfuel next time instead of underfuel.
Yeah, better to have half a lap extra than half a lap less, I suppose, isn't it? Ultimately,
I can confirm that that is the case. Yes.
just for the heart, if not the pace.
Yeah, we can afford the fuel.
Yeah, absolutely right. Of course, a little bit of extra weight on the front in the case of the Porsche as well. Thomas, then, did you let Vladislav back through at the end? Was that what happened there? We didn't see it on picture.
Yeah, I let him back through. It was only fair. He had the pace.
And obviously, I mean, are you guys communicating through the race? Is there a Discord call that all of the Impulse drivers are in?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, we pretty much coordinate everything. It's like when I'm gonna lift, when he's gonna pass, how he's gonna give me the position. Pretty much everything is coordinated.
Okay, that's very interesting to hear. Thomas, obviously, you had a pretty good race. You were in there in amongst that kind of middle top 10 vortex in the early part of the race. And obviously, all of you are in that huge queue. It was remarkable racing to watch from our perspective. I imagine it was quite intense from the virtual cockpit.
Yeah, it's a really good race. I'm very happy. Like I say, we're just trying to slowly get through the traffic. Also trying to save as much fuel at the same time as well. But yeah, you mentioned earlier, Victor just managed to get past traffic quicker than us all, and that allowed him to get the gap, which just couldn't gain. So yeah, very good race by Victor. Congratulations.
And while he's not on the podium, I do see that we have Philip Koenig in the call as well. Philip, your pit stop took a lot longer than we expected. What's the story? What happened?
Hi guys. Hello for the first. So yeah, I got a penalty because I drove over the cones and over the yellow line at the pit entry,
Ah,
and I didn't know about that. So yeah, I got a penalty when I was changing. I was fueling the car, and yeah, this obviously ruined my race. Pace was okay, so yeah, it's unfortunate.
it is really unfortunate. I did notice that you went through the cones. I didn't realize that would be a penalty offense myself either. That's unfortunate. I mean, you've had so much pace this year. I think at times you've looked like the quickest driver on the grid. You just need those 2 solid race results each weekend, don't you? And unfortunately, this time another hurdle. But Spa, I mean, that's almost a local circuit for you, being a German. How are you feeling about that one?
Yeah, so first I want to say that Fradi is, I guess, the fastest here, or maybe we are
Okay.
changing each track, but yeah, he's preparing much more than me this season because I'm lacking of time. But Spa is one of my favorite tracks, so I'm hoping for a good result there, and yeah, we will see.
Okay, we will see. Great to hear the mutual respect between all of you in the pro class. Again, a massive congratulations to Viktor Varbanov on his race win in the pro class, and congratulations as well to Vladislav Shopov for leading the championship once again coming out of this weekend. Guys, have a good evening.
You too, thank you.
You.
Thanks.
Very
Good
much.
night.
You too.
Bye bye.
And to all of our viewers watching on pitlane.tv, if you aren't subscribed, make sure you click the subscribe button, hit the notification bell as well. We'll be back the same time next weekend when we head to Spa-Francorchamps. We're into the second half of the SimGear GT3 Premier League by BULERS, and the second half is surely going to be just as exciting as the first. You don't want to miss it.